There are 10,000 ways to die in the 41st millennium, but only one way to live forever. Give yourself wholly to the dark gods, or so the whispers promised. The truth was far more grotesque. Every breath was bartered, every heartbeat weighed against the favor of beings who saw mortals as maggots in a feast of eternity. I was not always a servant of chaos. Once I was just a dock worker on the hive world of Varos Prime, another faceless soul among billions. But hunger gnawed deeper than loyalty, and when the cultists came with their secret food caches, their hidden weapons, and their shimmering symbols scrawled in ash and blood, I listened, I believed, I thought I was rising above the boot of the Astra Militarum and their conscription quotas. I thought I was escaping the suffocating lash of the Imperium. In truth, I was shackling myself to a far crueler master. Even now I remember the first rite, the flicker of corpse candles in the underhive, the acrid sting of sacrificial blood poured into rusted drainage pits, the pounding chants that beat like a second heart in my skull. They marked my flesh with runes, whispering promises that the Emperor's lies would never again chain me. The sensation was ecstasy until I realized the scar burned not with faith, but with possession. If you hunger for more tales from the dark millennium, where loyalty, faith, and survival mean nothing in the face of powers beyond comprehension, then steel yourself and stand firm. Subscribe, for the Emperor may not protect you, but supporting this channel ensures the stories endure, no matter how grim. Our cult was small at first, a knot of the desperate, the hungry, and the broken. But desperation breeds obedience, and soon the whispers of the warp wove us into something larger. I learned to load an auto pistol with trembling fingers. I learned to pray to beings who never listened, yet always answered. And most of all, I learned that to falter in the rituals was to be consumed, body and soul. I watched comrades collapse mid-chant, their tongues swelling black with rot as daemons clawed at their lungs from within. I saw a mother strangle her own child on command, only to be promised eternal reward as her mind unraveled into gibbering laughter. These were not punishments, they were lessons. They taught us obedience, they taught us fear. And yet for all their promises, life did not improve. The Astra Militarum still prowled the streets of the Hive City, hunting for insurgents. The Administratum still starved us, rationing food while the noble spires gorged themselves. The only difference was that now, when we starved, we bled ourselves into bowls and drank prayers thick as tar. Competence was survival. I became skilled at hiding weapons in cargo shipments, skilled at blending into the faceless tides of workers. I learned the secret hand signs of our cell, the cadence of coded chants that disguised murder as prayer. The Astra Militarum suspected nothing at first. That was our one fleeting triumph. We were invisible. But whispers carry, even in the deepest shadows of a hive city, and whispers attract attention. For all the promises of freedom, we were still slaves, not to the Emperor, not even to the Astra Militarum, but to darker things waiting in the dark between stars.
The whispers grew louder. At first, they came in dreams, words stitched from shadow, phrases that bent meaning like molten metal. Then they bled into the waking hours. I would be lifting crates at the dock or hiding cult iconography beneath loose floor plates, when suddenly a voice rasped across my skull like a knife on bone. It was never the same voice. Sometimes a soft, lilting murmur, other times a guttural snarl. But always it spoke of devotion, obedience, and blood. Our leader, a rag-wrapped fanatic named Orthus, told us it was a blessing. He hissed, his eyes sunken, his teeth ground to stubs from constant gnashing. We are chosen. But I could see the cracks spreading through the cult. Some took the whispers as divine proof, falling deeper into zealotry. Others flinched, questioning whether we had truly been blessed or cursed. The tension came to a head during a night gathering beneath the hive's forgotten water channels. Orthus demanded another sacrifice, not an outsider, not a captured guardsman, but one of our own. He said the gods required proof of loyalty. He gestured to a trembling boy, no more than 15, who had joined only because his parents had starved to death. Competence had always been my shield. I had learned to hide emotion, to keep my face blank when my stomach twisted in horror. But when the dagger was placed in my hand, when the whispers coiled like snakes around my ears, urging me to do it, do it, do it, I faltered. My hand shook. Orthus wrenched the blade away, snarling, and carved the boy's throat himself. The blood hissed as it struck the floor, spreading into unnatural patterns, forming runes that writhed and shimmered in the dim light. The whispers fell silent, replaced by a single low growl that reverberated through my bones. Something had answered. The cult was elated. They saw this as a sign of divine favor. But in the corners of the chamber, I caught glances of fear. Not everyone believed this was a blessing. Some of us understood. The gods were not granting us power. They were tightening the leash. It was soon after that that the Astra Militarum struck. Vox rumors had reached them, fragments of heresy, sightings of symbols daubed in blood on hab walls, whispers of gatherings after curfew. They swept through the underhive with precision, laser guns ready, Auspex units scanning for heat signatures. We were competent in our own ways. False walls hid our caches. Hidden tunnels led into the hive's sewage arteries. We melted into the laboring crowds when the guard patrols passed. But the whispers betrayed us. They urged zealots to lash out, to ambush squads, to daub murals of daemons in the open. Each act was a flare in the night sky, drawing the Imperium's blaze closer. The night it all changed. We were smuggling crates of stolen munitions through the freight levels. I remember the hum of the cargo lifter, the reek of oil and rust, the clatter of boots echoing down the passage. A Vox unit crackled nearby, guardsmen issuing quiet orders. We froze, silent as corpses. Then the whispers surged, a chorus of 100 screaming mouths in my skull. Strike now! Blood for us! Kill them all! One of the zealots screamed and opened fire. Autogun rounds rattled down the passage, sparks flaring from rusted plating. The guardsmen reacted instantly, disciplined, trained, efficient. Laser gun beams lanced out in crisp precision, each shot dropping a cultist where they stood. The air stank of ozone and burnt flesh. We dragged the crates into the shadows, abandoning comrades to die. My hands worked automatically. Release clamps, kick the lifter into reverse, haul the load into darkness. My pulse roared, my ears ringing with the whispers and the screams. That night proved the truth we had long denied. The Astra Militarum were not the ones living in chains. We were, and the gods were beginning to pull them tighter. Still with us in the darkness? Hit that like button if this tale chills your soul.
Blood had been spilled, and the Imperium did not forget. Within days, the Astra Militarum began a full sweep of the Underhive. What began as targeted raids became block-by-block purges. Civilians were pressed against walls, interrogated, and shot if their answers faltered. Entire habstacks were burned out to flush us from hiding, and we, the chosen of the dark gods, were forced into war. Our cell was ordered to hold an old manufactorium, its machinery long dead, its furnaces cold for decades. Rusted gears and skeletal conveyor lines made perfect barricades. We turned it into a fortress, hammering scrap into firing slits, setting tripwire traps, positioning stolen stubbers on the gantries. We worked like ants, frantic but efficient, because Orthus claimed the gods demanded a stand. That night, the god came. The first sign was the whine of a chimera's engine echoing down the hollow streets, followed by the pounding tread of boots. Through broken windows, I saw the disciplined ranks advance. Flak armor, laser guns at the ready, Vox units crackling with clipped commands. They moved as one, professional, unyielding. We answered with chaos. Autogun fire rattled from the windows, stubbers chattering wildly. Mortar shells stolen from the manufactorium storage were lobbed into the darkness, explosions echoing off the hive walls. For a heartbeat, it felt as if we could hold them. Then the guard responded. Heavy bolter fire stitched through the walls, tearing cultists apart in sprays of blood and rust. Flamers washed liquid fire across the lower levels, screams rising in a chorus of agony. Our crude defenses crumbled under their discipline. Where we panicked, they advanced with precision. Where we screamed prayers, they barked orders. They moved like a machine, grinding us down. Still, desperation makes killers. I remember crouching behind a shattered cogitator console, reloading my pistol with steady hands, even as my lungs burned with smoke. A guardsman rushed the barricade. I aimed, fired, and dropped him cleanly with a shot to the throat. For a moment I felt competent, even powerful. But then I saw his comrades press forward over his body, unshaken, and I knew no single kill mattered against the endless tide of the Astra Militarum. Orthus raved at the center of it all, chanting in tongues, his arms spread wide. The gods will deliver us! Stand, brothers and sisters, stand! His voice cut through the din, rallying the terrified, driving us to fight harder, longer, beyond reason. Some believed him, some even laughed as they were set ablaze, convinced they would be reborn in glory. The manufactorium became a slaughterhouse. The air was thick with ash, blood, and promethium fire. Shadows flickered on rusted walls like demons dancing in mockery. I fought because to stop was to die, because survival was instinct stronger than faith. My hands reloaded, aimed, fired, mechanical, efficient, but my heart, though, was already breaking.
Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning in the firestorm. At last the guard pulled back, their losses too steep for a final push. Dozens of their bodies littered the approach, smoking and torn. But twice as many cultists lay dead within the manufactorium. We had won, if survival meant victory. When silence finally fell, broken only by the crackle of flames, I looked around at what remained of us. Hollow eyes, burned flesh, blood-soaked rags clinging to shaking limbs. The gods had demanded a stand. They had given us just enough strength to endure, and in that endurance, they ensured we suffered longer. Faith bound us together, but doubt had taken root, and as the whispers surged once more, congratulating us in tones both honeyed and cruel, I began to wonder if the Astra Militarum, for all their hardship, were not the truly damned ones here.
The manufactorum was dead. Smoke drifted in thin ribbons through shattered girders, and the floor was carpeted with corpses. Guardsmen, cultists, and the things that had slithered out of the warp. The silence pressed on us like a weight. No prayers, no whispers, not even the drip of blood, only silence. We should have fled. Any sane mortal would have, but chaos cultists are not sane, and we were no longer mortals in any true sense. We were puppets, strung on threads of devotion we couldn't cut. Some tried to laugh, calling the massacre a victory. Others clawed at their own skin, desperate for the gods to speak again. The absence of whispers was unbearable. It was like being abandoned in a void, naked and unseen. I sat among the ruins, reloading an empty pistol I had no ammo for, hands working out of habit. Competence had kept me alive this long, but competence meant nothing without purpose. I thought of the guardsmen, tired, wounded, yet steady. I remembered their discipline, their unity. Even in horror they fought with clarity. We fought with nothing but madness. The silence did not last. When the whispers returned, they did not whisper at all. They roared, a torrent of promises, threats, laughter, commands, all at once, 1,000 voices boiling through my skull. I saw visions, planets burning, demons feasting, our cult torn into meat to fuel greater wars. The gods had not forgotten us. They had only paused to savor our despair. One by one, cultists collapsed, clutching their heads, blood streaming from eyes and ears. Some rose again, changed, their bodies twisted into parodies of flesh. Others simply burst apart, their lives consumed as fuel for powers beyond imagining. The gods had decided. We were no longer pawns. We were sacrifices. I ran, not from the guard, not from the demons, from the very gods I had sworn to serve. My boots pounded through ash and ruin, lungs burning, the screams of my comrades echoing behind me. I ran into the underhive tunnels, into shadows so deep no light could follow.
I do not know how I lived. Perhaps the gods were not done with me. Perhaps survival was just another torment. But I learned a truth that day, carved into me deeper than any ritual scar. The Astra Militarum endure hunger, despair, and endless death. They are crushed beneath the Imperium's heel, and their lives are misery. But Chaos Cultists, we are worse than slaves. We are toys. The Astra Militarum may suffer, but at least their suffering has purpose. Ours is just cruelty without end. And so, if you ever think the God have it bad, remember us. Remember the cultists who prayed for salvation and were given only horror. Remember that the dark gods never give without taking far more. We thought we were free. We were wrong.
Victory tasted like ash. The Manufactorum smoldered around us, a ruin slick with blood and soot. Those who lived staggered among the corpses, scavenging weapons from the fallen. We expected silence, a moment of breath before the guard returned. Instead, we heard laughter. Not human laughter, no, this was layered, echoing, warped as if every shadow carried its own mouth. The runes carved by Orthus during the sacrifices began to glow, pulsing with crimson light. Smoke twisted into shapes, faces with too many eyes, mouths stretching wide in endless hunger. The veil thinned, and what had once been a battlefield became an altar. The whispers were no longer just in our skulls. They filled the air, thick and choking, demanding more blood. Orthus dropped to his knees, arms outstretched, shrieking praises. His flesh writhed as the worms crawled beneath his skin. I watched, horrified, as his spine arched and tore through his back, sprouting twisted bone wings slick with gore. He was blessed, transformed before our eyes, but his scream was not triumph. It was agony. Every bone cracked, every nerve blistered, his body remade without mercy. The cultists fell prostrate, some weeping, others chanting louder. They believed this was salvation. I saw only cruelty. Then the daemons came. Claws slid through the air like knives through silk, and creatures of nightmare emerged from the smoke. They were not majestic gods, but mockeries of flesh, writhing and howling. One snapped a zealot in half with a casual twist. Another lapped burning blood from the floor, its tongue barbed and dripping. And through it all, Orthus, or what was left of him, howled and clawed at his own mutated flesh, his voice begging for release. The guardsmen returned in that moment, drawn by the unnatural light. I will never forget their faces when they breached the Manufactorum and saw what awaited them. Men who had faced orcs, tyranids, and worse froze in terror. For the first time, the Astra Militarum faltered. But discipline reasserted itself. Orders barked, bayonets fixed, flamers unleashed torrents of blessed fire. Daemons shrieked and burned, their forms unraveling in waves of smoke. Las fire blazed, disciplined volleys hammering monstrosities back step by step. We, the cultists, were caught between. Our gods had answered, and their answer was slaughter. Those who tried to aid the daemons were incinerated by god flamers without hesitation. Those who ran were dragged into the dark by talons. Competence was useless now. I fired until my pistol clicked empty, reloaded and fired again, each shot lost in the cacophony. My hands remembered the motions, but my soul was empty. For the first time, I envied the godsmen. They fought for survival, for duty, for something greater than themselves. We fought only because our masters demanded it, and every demand was torment. The battle ended not with victory, but with exhaustion. The daemons, half banished by fire and faith, slithered back into the cracks of reality. Orthus was gone, torn apart by the very wings that sprouted from his back. The god, bloodied and burned, withdrew once more to regroup. And we, the survivors, were left kneeling in the ashes, staring at what our devotion had summoned. The whispers were silent now. That silence was worse than their screams. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the dark millennium.
The manufactorum was reduced to ash, the cult scattered, the guard regrouping for another purge. Nothing truly changed that night. The Imperium would grind on. The cults would fester again in the dark, and the dark gods would whisper their promises to the desperate and the damned. But I carried something with me that no sermon or ritual could erase. The understanding that servitude to chaos is not power. It is hunger without satisfaction, pain without purpose, faith without end. The Astra Militarum suffer, yes. They are broken on the wheel of war, fed into the grinder of the galaxy. But when they die for something, for the Emperor, for humanity, for a cause that stretches beyond themselves. When cultists die, they die screaming in service to masters who never cared. Their bodies fuel for wars they'll never see. Their souls chewed to rags by gods who laugh at their devotion. So remember this tale when you hear whispers in the dark promising freedom, power, or escape. There are fates worse than death under the Emperor's guns. The Emperor protects. More stories await.